Hey! 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 Hey!
Oh! Oh! Who said that? What?
What are you listening to? Turn it down. Turn it down.
Turn it off.
What?
Turn it off.
What are you doing?
Working on the bike here.
Why are you just throwing the bolts any old where? They got to go back in a specific location. You do know that, right?
Because the bolts go in the bin. Just
No, they're not weight savings. They have to go back where you took them out. Cue the music. What's up, guys? I'm Matt, and this is the Motorworks channel. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking it's easy to take a motorcycle apart. There's just a couple of bolts and the thing comes apart. And you're right. It is easy to take a motorcycle apart.
How does it work?
It's putting it back together where the challenge comes in. Now for today's video, we have my buddy Ben's 2000 CBR 600 F4. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go over the process of taking it apart properly. Now when you take the bike apart, there's very simple steps we can take to make the assembly process as easy as the disassembly process. So let's get started. Okay guys, so now that we have the bike up on the lift, yeah, we're not going to be using things like a box that says Honda on it. We're not going to be using, certainly not going to be using a box that says weight savings. Okay, so get rid of those. Okay, so what we're actually going to use for this job are Ziploc baggies. What we do is we just take that magic marker, permanent marker, whatever you have, label the side you're going to be working on. So we're going to take off the left hand fairing. Okay, so now that we have our baggie here, let's go ahead. Before we start, I'm sure everybody out there, you're probably watching this video on a smartphone, but you want to take your smartphone, take a bunch of photos of the fairing together, noting where all the bolt locations are at, how many bolts there are, and just start snapping pictures of where the stuff's located. That way, you know where the bolts should be and how many you had, because you have it on your camera. Simple as that. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take apart this fairing here. Now bolts like this. That's got a shouldered bolt. Okay, that goes in this specific spot here. That shouldered bolt rests inside the plastic there and keeps that in place. That's why it's so important to remember where these bolts come from, so that when you put them back in, they hold the plastics on nice and securely. Up here is not a shouldered bolt. So again, when we're taking this apart, we're going to take pictures of the bolts and where they're located, so that way when we go to put it back together, again, it's going to be a lot easier. Still have to remove the plastic clips that mount to the inside of the bike. So these, the way that these release, is you just depress the center there, and that's how those release there. No prying necessary. Just push in on the center and then pull that out, just like that. Then to reset it, just push on the back and that resets it. Okay, now we have a screw type. Just a quarter turn out, and that releases that. That one's out of there. Then we have a screw down here. Notice there's a screw missing down here, so we'll have to note that. That screw out there. Alright, so we've removed all the fasteners. Now there might still be some rubber grommets that are holding on behind the fairings, so we don't want to just rip that off there. We want to very gently pull that off of there. Make sure that if there is, so there's a rubber grommet behind that, and we want to kind of slide these off, being ever so careful not to damage anything. Okay, so we got some screws underneath that are still attached. Also have some hoses attached here. Okay, now that that fairing's removed, we can go ahead and we can take the bolts and our piece of tape, and we could tape the baggie right here to the inside of that fairing. Keep that in there. Now, got your fairing. You took a picture, so this should be a breeze to put back together. Some things that you might want to replace if you are taking your fairings off are all these rubber grommets. They tend to get dry rotted, and over time they just start to fail. So if you have it off, you might want to consider just getting all new grommets. They're not that expensive, and it saves you the headache, because when these do break, they just spin in there and they don't loosen properly. So that's just one tip I have for that, as well as getting new plastic clips, because the plastic clips also, they get brittle over time. So it's a good time to go ahead and just replace all those plastic clips. Get grommets and clips, and you should have no worries then.
Now, one thing to consider with a bike like this is to actually get a brand-specific service manual. It's going to provide you with the best information to actually take a bike like this apart, or any other motorcycle. They tell you exactly where certain clips, certain fasteners, where all those things are located, how to take parts apart on your bike as far as taillight housings, things like that. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this bike because it's going to be different than your personal motorcycle, but having that service manual is really going to help with a big job like this.
We're going to now continue on to the front fairing. There's a couple parts to the front fairing. So we're going to have the headlight. We're also going to have the mirrors, the turn signals, and the windscreen here, as well as the dashboard, this part here, the cowling cover here. All these things are separate items, so just have enough bags ready. But we're going to go ahead, speed up this process now. Let's get started. We got that front fairing off. Now, as we can see, we have the inside of that front fairing that now we're going to take apart. We'll start by taking a picture of it. Take a picture of everything just as it sits, where everything's located. And that way we can put it back together the same way we took it apart. Headlight, and we started to remove the turn signals, but as you can see, somebody put aftermarket turn signals on here, and this isn't fitting out the original stock location due to these butt connectors here. What we're going to do is we're just going to cut the ends off here, and then since we already took a picture of how this stuff was wired, it'll be an easy repair when we put it back together, because we'll know what wire attaches to what wire. So that's the key, and that's why you want to take pictures of everything before you take it apart. Now it'll be a nice, easy, just look at the picture and connect the same wires, and you shouldn't have any problem. So we're going to remove the fuel tank. Okay, so we've removed the bolts, noting where they went, how they went. Before we actually remove the fuel tank, we have to disconnect the fuel line and any wires or hoses that might be attached to this fuel tank itself. There is going to be a fuel shutoff valve that you need to turn to the off position, and once you do that, then you should be able to disconnect the fuel line from there. So let's go ahead, take off this gas tank. Okay, so we removed the fuel tank. Now we've removed all the parts on the motorcycle. We're going to go ahead and set this fuel tank aside.
Alrighty guys, we have this bike all torn apart. If this is the first time you've taken a bike apart to this level, I'd like to say congratulations. It is a stressful thing to take a bike apart this far. What we're going to do now is we're going to get these parts off to paint, but first let me take a selfie.
Not only did we take the bike apart, but since we labeled everything, we know exactly where it goes, and since we've taken pictures of the different parts when they were together, we know how it should go back together, as well as where it should go on the bike. So as long as you follow those steps, putting this back together shouldn't take you that much more than it did to take the bike apart. Again guys, thanks for watching the video. I'm Matt, this is Motorworks. We have plenty more to do on this bike. I believe upcoming things are going to be how to install a jet kit, how to do basic maintenance, so that'll be lubing cables, checking, adjusting valve clearances. Join us next time while we dig into this bike a little bit further. Again, I'm Matt with Motorworks. Thanks for watching the video. Have a good one.